Hello, my Midnight Creepers, and welcome back. Wait, should I call you Midnight Creepers or Lovely Creepers? I can make a joke, I know, but guys, welcome back to another episode. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tonight I have prepared some Valentine red horror stories, so yeah. If you're new, also don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. It will mean the world to me. Thank you, and enjoy tonight's episode.
My girlfriend said she wanted something from the heart for Valentine's. I didn't think she meant literally. All right, I know I've been gone a bit, and honestly, I almost didn't record this. I've been staring at my phone screen for like an hour, just doom scrolling. You ever get stuck in that loop? You open one app, swipe for a bit, close it, then open the exact same app again, like something new's gonna show up. I did that 6 times with Reddit tonight before realizing I was avoiding something. Avoiding telling you guys this. There's a half-drunk Red Bull on my desk. It's warm now. Room's quiet except for the fan making that clicking sound it does when it's about to die. Kinda like me right now. But no excuses, right? I said I'd upload this, and I'm gonna. Thing is, this isn't one of those stories that ends with a cheap jump scare or some cryptic one-liner. This one's stuck with me. Still is. I didn't even want to write it at first, but people need to hear it, especially around Valentine's. So, here we go. Okay. So back in 2022, I was dating this girl named Zoe. Met her on Tinder. Super chill, kinda artsy. Loved weird shit like abandoned places, true crime podcasts, those cursed TikToks with distorted nursery rhymes. You know the type. Half soft girl aesthetic, half chaos goblin. She had this smile like she was constantly holding back a secret, and when she laughed, it was always a little too long. Like she was trying to see if you'd join in or get uncomfortable. I liked her. She made life interesting. Valentine's came up, and I did the basic thing. Flowers, chocolate, a card from Target that said something cheesy. She smiled when I gave it to her, but didn't open the card. Just looked at me and said, "Is this really from the heart?" Like, dead serious. I thought she was joking, so I laughed, but she didn't. That night, she sent me this link in a DM. Just said, "I found something weird. Thought of you." It was a .onion address. Tor browser only. At first, I thought it was some ARG or art project. Maybe something indie and creepy. She was always into weird deep web archives, like those ones that log radio static or collect old GeoCities sites. I clicked it. The site was blank. No graphics, just white courier font on a black background. One sentence. True love requires sacrifice. Are you ready to open the ribcage? That was it. No buttons, no form, no link. I texted her like, LOL. Okay, what is this? And she just replied with the knife emoji and a heart. I thought it was a bit like, haha, creepy Valentine's vibes, right? But over the next few days, stuff started getting odd. My phone battery kept draining for no reason. It'd be at 70%, then dropped to 10% in 10 minutes, even if I wasn't using it. I figured maybe the battery was dying. Whatever. Then I started getting notifications I hadn't enabled. Little pop-ups saying things like, "Love is earned." "You're not giving enough." "Time's running out." I checked every app. No malware. Nothing installed recently. Factory reset the phone. Still happened. I even asked Zoe if she was messing with me, and she just said, "Some sites follow you home." Smiled again. That same stretched lip, too long kind of smile. I'll admit, I started to feel paranoid. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. One time I was brushing my teeth, and I swear to God, my front camera light flickered on for half a second. Blink and you'd miss it. But I saw it. Zoe didn't seem worried. If anything, she seemed amused. She'd start texting me weird stuff late at night. Messages like, "Hearts grow softer when boiled." "Can I show you something?" "Do you trust me with a knife?" At first, I'd respond with memes or ask if she was high. But then she stopped replying altogether unless I answered seriously. Like she was testing me. Like it mattered. Then came the box. It showed up on my doorstep 2 nights before Valentine's. No return address. No stamps. Just my name, handwritten in red ink. Inside was a small velvet pouch, and inside that was a tooth, human, as far as I could tell. There was no note. Nothing. I called her, and she picked up on the first ring. Voice low and flat, like she'd been expecting it. "Did you like it?" she whispered. "What the hell is this?" I asked. "Is this real?" She didn't answer, just hung up. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the pouch on my desk. At 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with one message. "If you don't give her your heart, someone else will." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to. I told myself this was just a prank. A bad one. Maybe even something she thought would be romantic in some twisted way. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that. The next morning, I noticed a new icon on my phone. I didn't install anything, but there it was. A red heart, pulsing. No app name. Just beating. When I tapped it, the screen went black. Then white text scrolled across. "Begin the offering." I haven't eaten since yesterday. Can't even smell food without wanting to throw up. My hands won't stop shaking. And I've re-recorded this part 5 times because my voice keeps cracking. It's like every time I say this stuff out loud, it makes it more real. You know how people always say, "Just a dream," or "You're imagining it," and you start to believe it. I did that too. I wanted to believe this was just some dark TikTok scavenger hunt Zoe got too into. Something dumb and edgy. But it wasn't. It never was. After I tapped the heart icon and saw the words, "Begin the offering," my screen locked itself. No swipe up, no password, just frozen. I pressed the power button. Nothing. Held held it for 30 seconds. Nothing. Then it buzzed in my hand. Hard. Like it was trying to burrow into my palm. And that's when the speaker crackled. I swear to God, my phone spoke to me. Not a Siri voice. Not Zoe's. This one was wet. Like mouth full of something thick. Like someone trying to talk through raw meat. A voice that gurgled and stuck to your ears. The first gift is flesh. The camera turned on. I watched my own pale face in the screen. Wide-eyed, teeth chattering, heart pounding so loud I could see it in my neck. I tried throwing the phone across the room. It didn't break. Just bounced once and landed face up, still watching. Then the screen cut to black again and showed me something else. It was a feed. A video feed. At first, I thought it was pre-recorded. Poor quality, black and white, like a surveillance cam in some cheap basement. The walls were concrete, damp, with these streaks running down them like dried blood or rust. But then a shadow moved. Someone was there, not standing, but hunched, kneeling, naked. Their back was to the camera, but their skin was torn up, covered in cuts, little deep slices, like someone had carved into them. The whole time they were just twitching. Then a second figure walked into the frame. They wore a red mask. No holes, just a smooth red surface with a single black slit running vertically down the middle. Their arms were bare, but gloved hands held something. A small hacksaw. I didn't want to keep watching. I tried powering the phone off again. I tried pulling the battery out, but it didn't even have a seam. It wasn't my phone anymore. The masked figure grabbed the kneeling person's arm and without any hesitation started soaring into it. No build-up, no warning. The sound was the worst part. Wet, rough, squealing. No screaming though. Just this low, gagged choking, like the person couldn't even scream anymore. I ran to the bathroom and threw up in the sink. When I came back, the video was gone. My screen was black again. A new message had appeared. One down. You're next if you don't love her enough. I should have gone to the cops right then. But what was I going to say? My girlfriend sent me a cursed link, and now people are getting murdered on my phone. They'd laugh. Hell, I would have laughed a week ago. I texted Zoe, asked her where she was. She sent me one photo. No caption. It was a heart. Not a drawing. Not a cute emoji. A real one. Human. Sitting on a silver tray. And next to it, her hand holding a fork. The room in the photo looked like a hotel. Cheap. Blue curtains. Wallpaper with that same repeating pattern you only ever see in places that don't want to be remembered. She'd checked into a motel somewhere, and she was inviting me. I tracked the photo's metadata. GPS was stripped, but I recognized the wallpaper. My dad used to stay at this place off the I-90, a total shithole called the Drover Inn. I didn't even pack, just grabbed my keys and left. The parking lot was almost empty. One flickering light. The lobby was closed. I banged on the door until someone came out half asleep. Told them I was visiting my girlfriend. They didn't even ask for a room number, just waved me in like they wanted me gone fast. I found the room. 112. Door was cracked open. The smell hit me first. Rotting flowers. Copper. Like an open wound left out too long. I pushed the door open all the way and stepped inside. Zoe was there, sitting cross-legged on the bed like a child. Still in that same sundress she wore the last time I saw her. Her hands were stained red. Not dripping, just crusted. Dry, like it had soaked in and become part of her skin. She looked up at me and said, "I saved you the lungs. You'll need them to scream." I looked at the table beside her. There was a heart. Half of it, anyway. Torn unevenly down the center. The other half was missing. A small cooler hummed softly on the ground. I couldn't move. Couldn't even breathe right. She stood up, walked toward me, and kissed my cheek. "You're the only one who still has all your pieces," she whispered. "Don't make me take them." I backed out of that room and ran. Didn't even get to my car. Just ran across the parking lot into the woods behind the building. Heart ready to explode. I didn't stop running until my legs gave out and I collapsed in the wet leaves. Somewhere behind me, I heard the soft hum of a car starting. She'd left. Or maybe she was following. When I got back home the next morning, the heart icon on my phone was gone. In its place, a new one. A little red motel. I didn't touch it. I factory reset the whole device. Wiped it completely. Didn't matter. Next day, I found a cooler on my porch. Inside was a tongue. Mine. That's not possible, I know. But I looked in the mirror, opened my mouth, and for a second, it wasn't there. I screamed, bit down on it. It hurt, it bled. But the one in the cooler bled too. I kept it. It's still in my freezer, wrapped in foil, like leftover steak. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thinks if I bury it, she'll know. That she's watching. That voice on my phone hasn't come back. But last night, I saw her again. At the gas station near my house. She didn't get out of her car. Just parked, rolled the window down, and mouthed something at me. I couldn't hear it, but I knew what she said. Valentine's is coming. And this time, she wants the whole thing. I keep thinking about how quiet my apartment has gotten. Not the peaceful kind of quiet either. The kind that feels padded. Like the air itself is wrapped in fabric. Even the city sounds outside feel far away. Like they're happening underwater. I turned my TV on just for noise and left it on some cooking channel. But the voices started sounding wrong after a while. Too cheerful. Too clean. I muted it, and the silence came back heavier. I haven't told anyone about Zoe. I almost texted my brother last night, typed the message and everything, but my thumb just hovered over send. Because the second I involve someone else, this stops being contained. And I don't think whatever this is stays small when it spreads. I'm realizing now that containment was never an option. The day after I saw her at the gas station, I called in sick to work. My manager sounded annoyed, but I didn't care. My hands were trembling so badly, I could barely hold a glass of water without spilling it. Every reflective surface in my apartment felt hostile. My laptop screen, the microwave door, the black rectangle of my turned-off TV. I kept catching glimpses of movement that wasn't there. Around noon, my Wi-Fi cut out. I didn't think much of it at first. My provider's garbage anyway. I reset the router. Nothing. My phone switched to cellular automatically, but the signal bars were wrong. Instead of the usual LTE symbol, there was a small red heart sitting where the network icon should have been. No carrier name. Just the heart. A notification slid down immediately. Network connected. VEIN_01. I didn't connect to anything. I didn't approve anything. But my phone was suddenly flooded with messages. Not texts, not emails. Something else. A new app had opened itself. No icon this time, just a blank interface with a scrolling feed. It looked like a forum. Usernames flickered past in a vertical list. Thousands of them. Each one a string of letters and numbers that made my eyes hurt to focus on. Beside every name was a tiny live video thumbnail. I realized, slowly and sickeningly, that I was looking at other people's cameras, bedrooms, kitchens, offices. A guy sitting in an airport terminal with his head slumped against his backpack. A woman crying in her car outside what looked like a Starbucks drive-thru. None of them were looking at their screens. None of them knew they were being watched. At the top of the feed was a pinned post. Valentine's selection in progress. And under it, vote for the offering. My own face appeared in one of the thumbnails. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. It hit the carpet with a soft thud, but the feed kept scrolling. I could see my ceiling now, my light fixture, the edge of my panicked face peeking into frame. A small red border pulsed around my thumbnail. Highlighted. Selected. The comments started pouring in beneath it. They weren't in any language I fully recognized. Some looked like broken English. Others were symbols that crawled when I stared at them too long. But the meaning bled through anyway. Approval. Anticipation. Hunger. I stomped on the phone. Once. Twice. The glass spiderwebbed, but the screen didn't die. The app stayed open, untouched by the damage. My thumbnail zoomed in automatically until my face filled the display. And then the perspective changed. I wasn't looking at my apartment anymore. I was looking at myself from the corner of the ceiling, like a security camera had bloomed there. I spun around, scanning the room. There was nothing mounted up there. No device, no lens. But the angle on my phone showed me perfectly, standing barefoot on the carpet, chest heaving, eyes blown wide. A door appeared in the video feed, not in my apartment, on the screen. A plain metal door embedded in the wall behind the version of me inside the phone. It wasn't in my real room. I checked. My wall was blank. In the feed, the door handle started to turn. I felt the temperature drop. My breath fogged faintly in front of me. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was locked in place, watching the screen like it had hooked something deep inside my skull. The door opened inward. Darkness spilled out. Not metaphorical darkness. It moved like liquid, pooling onto the floor of the video room. From that blackness, hands emerged. Pale, trembling hands that clawed at the floor and dragged a body forward. It was a man, middle-aged. His eyes were rolled so far back only the whites showed. His mouth hung open in a silent O, strings of saliva stretching to the floor. He looked drugged, empty. The hands pulled him flat onto his back. More hands followed. Dozens of them. They pinned his limbs with mechanical precision. No faces. Just arms reaching from the dark. One hand pressed against his chest. The skin there began to sink inward. Not cut, not pierced. It simply yielded, like soft clay being pushed by a thumb. His ribcage dented slowly, folding under the pressure. His mouth opened wider in a scream I couldn't hear. The comments on the feed exploded, scrolling so fast they blurred into a red haze. I felt a pressure in my own chest, a dull ache at first. Then, sharper. I gasped and clutched at my sternum. My heartbeat stumbled, tripped over itself. On the screen, the man's chest continued collapsing inward, and with every inch it sank, the pain in me intensified. I understood with a clarity that made my vision swim. Whatever was happening to him was tethered to me. I scrambled for the kitchen. Every breath was a knife. I yanked open a drawer and grabbed the first thing my hand touched, a screwdriver. I didn't think. I just slammed it down into my phone. The screen went black. The pain vanished instantly. I collapsed against the counter, sucking in air like I'd been underwater too long. For a second, there was blessed silence. Then the phone vibrated again. The display flickered back to life, unbroken. The feed was gone. In its place was a single line of text. Interference noted. Another line appeared beneath it. Penalty applied. Every light in my apartment shut off. Not tripped. Not dimmed. Off. The refrigerator died mid-hum. The city noise outside vanished completely. I was standing in absolute darkness. The only illumination coming from the phone's sick red glow. Something moved behind me. I heard it in the air. A subtle displacement, like someone stepping carefully across a room. My skin prickled. I turned slowly, raising the phone like a lantern. The beam of red light caught on a shape standing in my hallway. It was tall. Too tall. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. The outline was wrong. Proportions stretched like a reflection in warped glass. I couldn't make out a face. Just a smooth surface that swallowed the light. It took a step forward, The floor didn't creak. It didn't make any sound at all. But I felt the vibration of the movement in my teeth. A low hum that rattled my jaw. My phone chimed softly. Escort has arrived. The figure raised an arm and pointed at my front door. I don't remember deciding to obey. My body moved on its own, feet carrying me forward in jerky, puppet-like steps. I unlocked the door and opened it. The hallway outside my apartment wasn't my hallway anymore. It stretched endlessly in both directions, lined with identical doors. Each one had a small heart carved into the wood at eye level. The air smelled sterile, like a hospital scrubbed too clean. The figure gestured again. Walk. I stepped into the corridor. The moment both feet crossed the threshold, my apartment door slammed shut behind me. When I spun around, it was gone. Just another identical door with another carved heart. I started walking. As I passed each door, I heard sounds leaking through the cracks. Muffled sobbing, whispered pleading, soft laughter that didn't sound human. My phone screen updated with every step, displaying a counter ticking upward. Processing 17%, 23%, 41%. Halfway down the corridor, one of the doors shuddered violently. Something inside slammed against it again and again. A voice screamed for help. Raw, hoarse, desperate. I recognized the language this time. English. Clear as day. I reached for the handle without thinking. The tall figure's hand clamped around my wrist. It was ice cold. Not the cold of winter air. The cold of something that had never been warm. My bones ached under its grip. Slowly, deliberately, it shook its head. The screaming behind the door cut off mid-breath. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. My phone chimed one last time. Valentine's recipient confirmed. The corridor dissolved. I was back in my apartment, sprawled on the floor. The lights hummed back to life. The refrigerator kicked on. Outside, a car horn blared distantly. Everything looked normal, except for the mark on my wrist. A small heart, pressed into the skin like a brand. It wasn't bleeding. It wasn't burned. It was just there, raised and red and impossibly precise. My phone lay beside me, screen dark. When I picked it up, it behaved like nothing had happened. No strange apps. No messages. Just my regular home screen. A new text came through from an unknown number. A single photo loaded. It was me, lying unconscious on my apartment floor, taken from directly above. Standing over my body in the picture was Zoe. She was smiling down at the camera, eyes bright and feverish. Under the photo, she typed one sentence. They chose you because you opened the door. And as I stared at that message, my wrist started to pulse in time with my heartbeat. The little carved heart throbbing like it was trying to beat its way out of my skin. There's a smell I can't get out of my nose. I scrubbed my hands in the sink until the skin around my knuckles cracked and stung. but it's still there. Metallic and sour, like I stuck my face inside a busted battery. I even stepped outside for air, stood on the sidewalk while people walked their dogs and checked their phones and lived their tiny, normal lives, and the smell followed me out there too. It's inside me. That's the only explanation that makes sense anymore. I keep replaying that photo Zoe sent. Not the obvious part, not her standing over me. It's the background that eats at me. My ceiling looked wrong. The angle was too high, like the camera was pressed flat against the plaster. There was no way a person could have been standing where that shot came from, which means she wasn't alone when she took it. The mark on my wrist didn't stop pulsing. It settled into a rhythm that wasn't synced with my heartbeat anymore. It had its own cadence, slow, deliberate. When I pressed my fingers against it, I could feel movement underneath. Not blood flow, something crawling, like a fingertip tracing lazy circles beneath my skin. I tried to ignore it. I lasted maybe an hour. Then my laptop woke up on its own. I was across the room when the screen snapped from black to bright white. The sudden light made me flinch. Lines of text were already populating the display, appearing faster than I could read. It wasn't a program I recognized. No window borders, no cursor. Just a full-screen document filling itself in. A contract. That's the only word for it. Dense paragraphs arranged with obsessive neatness. At the top, centered in stark black letters, reciprocation agreement, Valentine cycle. My name was written underneath. Not typed, signed. My signature, perfectly replicated, inked at the bottom of the page like I'd already agreed to everything on it. The crawling sensation in my wrist intensified. My hand moved toward the laptop without my permission. My fingers hovered over the trackpad and began to scroll. Clauses flicked past. The recipient acknowledges the voluntary surrender of internal property. The recipient consents to ceremonial extraction. The recipient understands that refusal constitutes breach and invites reclamation. Each sentence felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The air in my apartment thickened as I read, pressing against my lungs. By the time I reached the final section, my vision had narrowed to a tunnel. Scheduled collection, February 14th, 11:11 p.m. Tomorrow night. A knock rattled my front door. It was sharp and official. 3 quick strikes. I nearly cried with relief. Normal sound. A real person. I stumbled over to the door and yanked it open. A delivery guy stood there, holding a flat white box. He wore a faded hoodie with a pizza chain logo on it, the kind you see everywhere. His expression was bored, detached. He held the box out to me. "Delivery," he muttered. "I didn't order anything," I said. He glanced down at a receipt taped to the lid. "Prepaid. Name matches." He said my name. My stomach twisted. I took the box with numb hands. It was warm. He turned and walked back down the stairs without another word. I stood there, listening to his footsteps fade, half expecting them to stop and come charging back up. They didn't. I carried the box to my kitchen table and stared at it. Grease was already seeping through the cardboard in dark stains. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside was a heart-shaped pizza. Pepperoni arranged in a perfect red spiral. Cheese melted unevenly, bubbling in places. It looked normal. Stupidly normal. A cheap Valentine's promotion you'd see plastered all over Instagram. Except for the smell. It was the same metallic stink that had been haunting me all day. It rolled out of the box in a thick wave. My stomach lurched. The pepperoni slices weren't round. They were irregular, jagged. Some still had tiny white nodules clinging to them that looked disturbingly like fragments of bone. There was a small plastic container tucked into the corner of the box. Dipping sauce. The label read, Marinara, extra rich. The sauce inside was too dark, too glossy. When I peeled the lid back, it clung to the plastic in slow, syrupy threads. The smell intensified until my eyes watered. My phone buzzed on the table. A message from Zoe. Eat. It's rude not to accept a gift. I staggered back from the table, shaking my head like she could see me. Another message appeared immediately. They're watching you waste it. The overhead light flickered. Once. Twice. I became acutely aware of the empty corners of my apartment, the spaces where shadows pooled. My wrist throbbed violently, a hot spike of pain that shot up my arm. With a choked sound, I grabbed a slice. The crust was greasy and limp in my fingers. Oil dripped onto the table. I brought it to my mouth, gagging before it even touched my lips. Every instinct screamed at me to stop. But the pain in my wrist surged again, blinding and electric. I bit down. The texture was wrong. The cheese stretched in sticky strands. But beneath it, the topping was dense and fibrous. It resisted my teeth before giving way with a soft tear. A burst of warm, coppery liquid flooded my tongue. I retched and spat the mouthful onto the floor. It hit the tile with a wet slap. My vision swam. The room tilted. The piece I'd spat out twitched. Not a metaphor. It moved. A faint contraction rippled through the chewed mass, like a muscle reacting to a stimulus. I stared at it, frozen, as it pulsed weakly on the tile. My phone chimed again. A video call. Zoe's name filled the screen. My finger slid across the answer button without my consent. Her face appeared. She was somewhere dimly lit, her features carved in soft shadow. She looked ecstatic, eyes glassy, skin flushed. "You're doing so good," she whispered. "They love compliance." I tried to speak. Nothing came out but a broken wheeze. She tilted her camera downward. My breath stopped. She was sitting at a long table. It stretched beyond the frame in both directions. Figures were seated along its length, their shapes obscured by darkness. In front of each of them was a plate. On every plate sat a human heart. Some were intact. Others were carved into neat portions. Hands emerged from the shadows, lifting utensils, cutting, tasting. The wet sounds of chewing filled my phone speaker, intimate and obscene. Zoe picked up a knife and fork. Her plate held a heart that was still beating. Slow, heavy thumps that made the image shudder. She pressed the knife into it and looked back at me. "This is what love looks like," she said softly. Shared. She sliced. The screen went black. I dropped the phone and screamed until my throat felt shredded. The sound bounced off my apartment walls and came back distorted. My wrist burned like it was being branded all over again. I clawed at it, nails digging into flesh, desperate to tear whatever was inside me out. Something pushed back. A bulge rolled beneath my skin, tracing the outline of the heart-shaped mark from the inside. I felt it press outward, stretching me. My skin thinned over it until I could see a darker shape moving underneath, beating in that same slow cadence. I stumbled to the bathroom mirror. The mark had opened. Not split, opened. The skin there peeled back in delicate petals, revealing a slick red surface beneath. It glistened wetly. It was unmistakable. A tiny heart, embedded in my wrist, pumping steadily. I stared at it in horrified fascination. Each beat sent a tremor up my arm. I could feel it syncing with something distant, something vast. A rhythm echoing through my bones. My phone, still lying on the kitchen floor, emitted a final notification. The sound was soft, almost gentle. I didn't want to look. I forced myself to. A single line of text glowed on the screen. Preparation complete. Collection imminent. And as I read it, I felt another heartbeat join the first, deeper in my chest, answering the tiny organ in my wrist like a call and response. My clock says it's 11:02 p.m. and I've been watching those numbers change like they're counting down to a car crash. I'm strapped inside. Every second feels louder than it should. The apartment lights are on, every single one of them, and it still feels dim, like the brightness is being swallowed before it reaches the corners. I tried calling someone again, anyone, but the call screen just hung there, silent, like the world had stepped away from the phone and left it ringing in an empty room. I keep thinking, if I talk long enough, if I keep describing this, I can outrun what's about to happen. Like narration is a shield. Like words can wedge themselves into the gears of whatever machine is turning behind all of this. My wrist is beating so hard, it's making my fingers twitch on their own. It's 11:07 now. I don't think I'm outrunning anything. At 11:10, every device in my apartment turned on at once. Not gradually, instantly. My TV blazed to life in a wash of white. My laptop screen lit up. My phone vibrated so violently it skittered across the table and hit the floor. Even the cheap digital clock on my stove glowed brighter than I'd ever seen it, its numbers burning a deep red. Every screen showed the same thing. A live feed of my living room. The angle was impossible again, high and distant, like the room had been peeled open and I was being observed from a place that didn't exist in physical space. I saw myself standing there, shoulders hunched, one hand clamped around my wrist. The image lagged by half a second, a ghost of my movements trailing behind me, and I wasn't alone in the feed. There were shapes gathered around the edges of the room. They didn't block the furniture. They overlapped it, semi-transparent, like silhouettes cut from darker darkness. I turned in a slow circle. But in my real apartment there was nothing there. On the screens they leaned closer. My phone chimed. Witnesses present. A low murmur filled the air. It didn't come from any speaker. It seeped out of the walls themselves. A layered whisper made of countless voices stacked on top of each other. I couldn't pick out words, just tone. Eager, intent, reverent. The tiny heart in my wrist accelerated. Its rhythm spread up my arm and into my chest until my entire body was pulsing with it. My vision sharpened painfully. Colors oversaturated. Edges too crisp. I could see the individual fibers in my carpet, the faint tremor in my hands. At 11:11, the front door opened. There was no knock, no turning handle. It simply swung inward with a soft, final click. Zoe stepped inside. She looked exactly the way she had the day I met her. Same jacket, same messy hair tucked behind one ear. She smiled when she saw me, and for a split second my brain tried to snap back to that memory. A bar, dim lights, her laughing at something stupid I'd said. Then the shapes on the screens shifted, crowding closer to her. The murmur deepened into a hum that vibrated in my teeth. "You made it," she said gently, like we'd planned this, like I'd agreed to it. I tried to speak. My throat felt packed with sand. All I managed was a hoarse whisper. "Stop." Her expression softened with something that almost looked like pity. She walked toward me, her footsteps perfectly silent. With each step, the air thickened, pressing against my skin. The shapes in the feed leaned in unison. "This was always the end," she murmured. "You clicked. You opened. You walked. Every door after that was just confirmation." She reached out and took my marked wrist. The contact sent a shock through me. Not pain, but recognition. The tiny heart surged against her fingers, and I felt an answering pull deep in my chest. A magnetic drag toward her, toward the space between us. The room began to stretch. The walls elongated, pulling away like taffy. The ceiling climbed higher and higher until it disappeared into shadow. The floor beneath my feet darkened, its texture smoothing into something reflective. I looked down and saw my own face staring back at me from an endless black surface. The screens were gone. The apartment was gone. We were standing in a vast open space that felt carved out of silence. The shapes that had crowded my room now ringed us in a perfect circle. They were clearer here, tall, thin. Their outlines shimmered like heat haze. I still couldn't see faces, but I felt their attention like physical pressure on my skin. Zoe guided my hand to my chest. "Feel it," she whispered. My palm pressed flat against my sternum. My heartbeat thundered beneath it, impossibly loud. Each pulse echoed through the space, and the circle of figures swayed in time. The sound wasn't just in my ears. It was everywhere. Inside my skull. In the air. In the ground. "That's what they came for," she said. "Not the muscle, not the blood, the rhythm, the promise that something can keep time in a universe that doesn't." Her words slid into me with terrible clarity. This wasn't about an organ. It was about the act of giving it. The surrender. The moment of offering, when something essential leaves you by your own hand. My fingers began to curl. I fought it with everything I had. My muscles trembled, locked in a losing battle against an invisible current. My hand pressed harder against my chest. The pressure built, a crushing weight that made my vision spark. The circle tightened. The figures stepped closer, and the hum rose into a deafening crescendo. I felt their anticipation like a tide pulling me under. Zoe's eyes never left mine. They were bright with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. "It only hurts for a second," she said softly. "After that, you're part of the chorus." My skin felt thin, fragile, like it was no longer designed to contain what beat beneath it. The tiny heart in my wrist synchronized perfectly with the one in my chest, their rhythms merging into a single, overwhelming drum. I understood then that the pain wasn't the point. The point was the choice, through the roar in my ears, through the crushing pressure and the suffocating presence of the witnesses. A sliver of clarity cut through. They needed me to complete it, to agree in the final moment, to turn inevitability into consent. I let my hand go slack. The force driving it faltered. The pressure eased by a fraction. A ripple of confusion passed through the circle. The hum wavered. Zoe's grip tightened. Panic flashed across her face. "Don't," she breathed. "You can't stop now." I met her eyes and shook my head. The space around us shuddered. Hairline cracks split the reflective floor, spiderwebbing outward from my feet. The figures recoiled as a new sound tore through the air, a sharp, splintering crack that drowned out their hum. My heartbeat stuttered. For one terrifying instant, it stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, total. The kind of silence that exists before anything has ever made a sound. The circle froze. Zoe's mouth opened in a silent scream. And then my heart slammed back into motion. Not in my chest. Everywhere. The beat exploded outward. A shockwave that tore through the gathered figures. They fragmented like shattered glass, their forms breaking into slivers of darkness that scattered into the void. The vast space convulsed, folding in on itself. Zoe's hand slipped from mine. She was being pulled backward, her body stretching away like an image dragged across a broken screen. Her eyes locked on mine, wide with something between fury and grief. "This isn't over," she mouthed. Then she was gone. The apartment snapped back around me with brutal suddenness. I collapsed onto my living room floor, gasping. The lights flickered weakly. The devices were dark. The air was thin and ordinary, and blessedly empty. My wrist was smooth. The mark was gone. No scar. No trace. I pressed my fingers to my chest, half expecting to find a hollow there. My heart beat steadily beneath my ribs, solid and real. My phone buzzed one last time. Hands shaking, I picked it up. There was no strange app, no red icons, just a single notification from an unknown sender. No image, no link, only text. Cycle incomplete. Beneath it, another line appeared as I watched. We will wait. The message didn't disappear. It didn't need to. It just sat there, patient and certain. Outside, somewhere in the city, a siren wailed and then cut off abruptly. The silence that followed felt familiar, heavy, expectant. I'm sitting here now, staring at that message, listening to my heart keep time in the quiet. Every beat sounds louder than the last. Every beat feels like a countdown I can't see the numbers for. And I can't shake the certainty that somewhere, in a space just behind the walls of this world, something is listening to it with me. Bro! I was chilling, eating leftover lasagna, and now I'm just sitting here with my fork in the air, like what the actual fuck did I just read? Hearts grow softer when boiled is going to haunt me every Valentine's Day for the rest of my life. Thanks for that. I thought this was gonna be some "my girlfriend gave me a shoebox with concert tickets" post. And now I'm fighting for my life in the comment section. I've read No Sleep for 6 years. This is the first time I've had to scroll back up, reread, and actually walk away from my phone for a minute. My chest hurts. I feel watched, not me physically checking my wrist mid-read. The pizza scene? I gagged. Out loud. My roommate asked me what was wrong, and I couldn't even explain it without sounding insane. You ever read something so messed up, it feels like it changed your DNA a little? Like I'm not the same guy who opened this thread 10 minutes ago. Everyone's talking about the heart. But can we please talk about that scene with the contract just appearing on his laptop? That hit different. I don't even click sketchy links, and now I feel like I owe someone something. My girlfriend insisted we use a Ouija board on Valentine's night, just for fun. It knew about the girl I cheated with. Okay, lights low, rain in the background, mic hot, let's go. So I was supposed to be asleep 2 hours ago. I've got work in the morning, 2 missed calls from my manager, and a half-eaten burrito congealing on the desk next to me. I don't even know why I hit record. I was just lying here, phone in my hand, mind spiraling, thinking about her and about that night. Valentine's Day, red candles, cheap wine, and a Ouija board we bought from a Spirit Halloween clearance bin like dumbasses. I haven't told this story to anyone. Not really. I've made jokes about it in group chats. Called it that weird night with Jessie, like it was just some creepy fluke. But I think deep down, I knew something was off the moment we touched that board. There's this part I've been avoiding. Not because it's scary, though it is, but because it knew something it shouldn't. Something I had buried. Something I thought she'd never find out. And the thing is, I don't even believe in this stuff. At least, I didn't. Let me tell you what happened. Part 1. It'll be fun, she said. Jessie always had a thing for the weird shit. Crystals, tarot, burning sage to get rid of bad vibes. Her apartment constantly smelled like incense and anxiety. It was one of the things I found charming when we first started dating. Her whole soft goth aesthetic, the way she'd paint little moons on her nails, the black boots with spikes she wore to brunch. We weren't a perfect match. She journaled about moon cycles. I scrolled Reddit during her full moon rituals. Valentine's Day was a Wednesday that year. I remember because I had work the next morning, and I kept checking the clock like some part of me knew this night was going to go sideways. We had dinner at her place, some vegan pasta thing she made that actually slapped, and then she pulled out this dusty-ass Ouija board from a plastic bag under her bed. "Let's just try it," she said, eyes already glinting with that look she got when she was about to do something chaotic. "One session, just for fun." I laughed. "Jess, come on. That's for middle school sleepovers, not date night." She pouted, real dramatic. "Don't be lame. It's Valentine's. You gotta trust me." So we lit candles, dimmed the lights, put on some ambient playlist called Witchy Vibes Volume 3 she found on Spotify. I was half drunk and whole tired. The burrito I had at lunch was threatening to make a comeback. Still, I went along with it, because the truth was, I felt guilty. She didn't know it then, but I'd fucked up a couple weeks before. A girl from my old job, someone I swore I had no history with. Yeah, we got drunk, and one thing led to another. Jessie had asked me, point blank, if I still talked to her. I lied. Said she was just a co-worker. So maybe, deep down, I agreed to the board because I thought it would be harmless. Maybe I needed to pretend I was a good boyfriend for one night. Or maybe some part of me wanted to be punished. We sat cross-legged on her bedroom rug, the candles flickering like they knew something we didn't. She put her fingers on the planchette, looked at me. "Come on," she whispered. "Both hands." I rolled my eyes, but placed my fingertips lightly on the plastic. It was smooth and cold, like it had just come out of a freezer. We asked the usual questions. "Is anyone there?" Nothing. "What's your name?" The planchette didn't budge. I was about to make a joke when it twitched, just slightly, like a shiver. Jessie gasped. "You moved it," I said. "Swear to God I didn't," she replied. Then it slid, slow and smooth, to the top left corner. "Yes." We both froze. I asked, "Who are you?" Nothing for a second. Then it spelled, "Rena." Jessie whispered, "Rena, is that your name?" Yes. I felt something then. Not cold, not warm, just aware. Like the room had shifted focus and we weren't alone anymore. "What do you want?" Jessie asked. The planchette paused, then moved again. to help. Help. That's what it said. Jessie smiled. See, this is cool. It's like a guide spirit or something. But I didn't like it. Not the way it answered. Not the way it felt. Like someone brushing a finger down the back of my neck. I asked, help with what? And then it spelled, she knows. I jerked my hands off the planchette. Jessie laughed nervously. What the fuck does that mean? I didn't answer. My heart was thudding like a speaker with the bass cranked too high. The planchette started moving again. Jessie hadn't touched it. It slid on its own. I swear to God. The girl with red hair. Jessie stared at it, then at me. What girl? My stomach dropped. I hadn't said a word about the girl from work. Not a single word. Babe, I started, trying to laugh it off. It's just a coincidence. But she wasn't smiling anymore. Who is she? The candles flickered violently. One went out, snuffed like a breath. I hadn't touched the board. Jessie hadn't moved. And yet the planchette kept spelling. Faster this time. Jerky and erratic. You lied, you lied. Jessie screamed. Knocked the board off the rug. The planchette skittered across the room and hit the wall. Get out, she said, voice shaking. Jess, get out. I left. I didn't even grab my coat. Outside, it had started to rain. I don't remember driving home that night. I don't remember turning the keys or backing out of Jessie's apartment complex, or the red tail lights blinking through the wet windshield. All I remember is this sick, gnawing pressure in my gut, like something had crawled inside me and was nesting behind my ribs. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the TV on mute and Twitter open, scrolling mindlessly, trying to trick my brain into pretending everything was fine, that I wasn't freaking out, that a fucking board game hadn't just ripped the floor out from under my life. The messages were waiting when I woke up. Jessie hadn't texted me, but there was a DM request on Instagram from someone I hadn't seen since the night I cheated. Erin. Yeah, that was her name. Erin, with the red hair. Erin, who was supposed to have moved out of state. Erin, who blocked me on everything the morning after. Her message said, "Did you tell her? Because someone came to my place last night. A girl. She looked wrong." I just stared at the screen. I didn't reply. Because I didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. I hadn't spoken her name. Jessie didn't know her full name. Hell, I barely remembered her address. And even that was from Uber Eats receipts when we used to hang out. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is what Erin sent next. She stood at the end of my hallway, pale, drenched. I thought it was a prank. But when I got closer, her mouth was open, like unhinged, like it had been cracked open at the sides. She smiled, and then she whispered my name. But it sounded like you saying it. I think something's following you. I dropped my phone. Didn't pick it up for hours. Not until it buzzed again. This time with a group chat ping from my boys. They were laughing about something. A meme. Some dumbass TikTok about haunted dolls. I couldn't even fake a reaction. My hands were ice. The apartment smelled like metal and rain and burnt sage. Leftover from Jesse's place, maybe. I started hearing creaks in the walls, like the place was breathing with me. Every time I looked away from the mirror in the hallway, I thought I saw movement. Not a person, a shape, like someone standing just out of view. Always. I called Jessie. She didn't pick up. I called again, straight to voicemail. Finally, I texted, "Can we talk, please? I'm losing my mind." No response. I didn't sleep the next night either, but I did see her. And when I say her, I don't mean Jessie. The girl with the red hair was standing in my kitchen at 3:44 a.m. I remember the time because my phone screen was still lit, sitting on the table in front of me while I tried to play it cool with a YouTube video on autoplay. Some dude unboxing a PS5. His voice got all glitchy and warbled, like the audio was buffering. Except it wasn't. I heard my name. Not from the video, from inside the apartment. I turned my head. She was there. Erin. Or at least, a thing wearing Erin. Same red hair, but stringier, soaked. Her clothes were dark and hanging off her like they were drenched in something thicker than water. Her eyes were bloodshot and too wide, like she hadn't blinked in days. Her mouth, Jesus. It was smiling, but the skin at the corners had torn. Fresh, pink and glistening, like someone had taken a box cutter and sliced her a new smile on both sides. She wasn't breathing. She just watched me, eyes locked. And then, slowly, she tilted her head and opened her mouth wider, like something was crawling out of it. I don't remember screaming. I just remember blinking. And she was gone. Gone. I stood up and ran to the kitchen with a baseball bat I kept under the couch. Nothing. No trace of water on the tiles. No red hair. No blood. No footsteps. But the oven clock said 3:44 a.m. Same time. Exactly. I left the apartment that night. I didn't even put on shoes. I drove to Jessie's again. She still wasn't answering, but I buzzed until someone else let me in. Pounded on her door like a maniac. No answer. Finally, I kicked it open. I didn't mean to. I just panicked. But it gave way too easy. Like it had been unlocked. Inside, it smelled like rot. Not food rot. Not trash rot. Organic. Like a room where something had been dying for a long time and only recently got up to leave. Candles were still on the floor. Wax melted into the carpet. The Ouija board was gone. The bathroom door was open. Her tub was filled to the brim with mud or sludge. I don't know what to call it. Black and thick like oil, with something floating in it, something white like fabric or skin. I didn't look too long, but the mirror above the sink, oh God, there was something written in it, not in lipstick, in something darker, streaked. It said, "She saw what you did." And underneath that, but I saw more. I ran like a little bitch, got in the car, drove to a 24-hour McDonald's, and sat there until sunrise, shaking, trying to order a McGriddle through clenched teeth, while some underpaid teen looked at me like I was about to snap. Jessie never answered. Not that day. Not the next. Then her account disappeared. Poof. Instagram, gone. Twitter, deactivated. Phone number. This number is no longer in service. I went back to her building 2 days later. The landlord told me there was no tenant by that name, not anymore. And then the dreams started. Every night, for 5 nights straight, I woke up to her whispering in my ear. Erin, but not. Something inside her. Something that used her voice. You tasted her, it would hiss. And you forgot me. One night I woke up with the sheets soaked. Not sweat. It was cold, viscous, and smelled like the tub from Jessie's place. I stopped sleeping altogether. I tried deleting my socials. Tried changing my number. Got a burner phone. Didn't help. Because she wasn't following the signal. She was following me. And then, this part is the worst. Erin called me. The real Erin. From a hospital. She'd been attacked. A home invasion, they said. She had no memory of what happened. They found her at the bottom of the stairs, with all her fingernails torn off, like she'd tried to climb out of something. She didn't remember messaging me. Didn't even know we'd spoken. When I told her about the girl in her hallway, she cried. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. I had a dream that night. I was in the tub, underwater. I couldn't breathe, and someone was holding me down. But the thing is, when I looked up, it was your face staring back at me. I hung up. I haven't answered since. I don't know if Jessie's alive. I don't know if Erin was ever really in the hospital, or if she ever left. But I do know this. That board, it wasn't just a dumb game. Something answered. Something that doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, doesn't move on. And it's still here, watching me, waiting. And tonight, for the first time since Valentine's Day, I saw her again. She was standing in the corner of my room, smiling, mouth torn wider, hands holding the planchette, pointing to yes. The room didn't get darker when I blinked. It got thicker. That's the only way I can explain it. like the air itself had weight to it, pressing against my eyes, my lungs, my ears. I was lying flat on my back, frozen in that stupid, half-awake state where your brain is screaming, but your body is nailed to the mattress. The corner of my room was wrong. Not empty, occupied. She was still there, and the longer I stared, the less she looked like a person pretending to be Erin, and the more she looked like a mistake someone forgot to erase. The planchette in her hands was tilted toward me, trembling like it was straining against an invisible leash. I tried to sit up. Nothing moved. Not my fingers. Not my jaw. My heartbeat was so loud it felt like it was happening outside my chest, like something in the room was listening to it and matching the rhythm. Her mouth stretched. The skin at the sides didn't just split wider this time. It peeled. Slowly. Silently. Like wet paper being torn. The smile climbed up her cheeks, past where it should have stopped, and I saw teeth that weren't arranged right. Too many. Packed tight and uneven, layered behind each other like rows of broken glass shoved into her gums. She whispered my name without closing her mouth. The sound didn't come from her throat. It came from everywhere. From inside the walls. From under the bed. From the hollow space behind my eyes. And then the planchette scraped against itself. Not the board. There was no board. Just the plastic triangle grinding in her fingers, vibrating so hard it made this thin, insect-like whine. My phone, face down on the nightstand, lit up at the same time. Notifications stacked on the screen in a rapid, silent cascade. I couldn't read them from where I was, but I felt each one like a tap on my skull. Tap, tap, tap. Her head jerked to the side, listening to something I couldn't hear. The angle was wrong. Human necks don't bend like that. There was a soft popping sound, like knuckles cracking underwater. And she took a step forward without moving her feet. She just slid. The distance between us collapsed in a blink. Her face hovered inches from mine. I could smell her. Not rot this time. Something chemical, sharp, like a public pool mixed with pennies and old electricity. Her eyes were glossy and unfocused, pupils blown so wide they swallowed the color. Inside them, something shifted. Not a reflection. A movement behind the surface, like shapes swimming under ice. "You opened," she said. Her lips didn't match the words. They hung open in that carved grin, while the voice crawled out anyway. Another notification buzzed. Then another. The sound tunneled straight into my spine. I tore my gaze away from her, just long enough to see my phone screen explode with light. Dozens of emails. All from my own address. The subject line was the same on every single one. Look. My paralysis cracked just enough for my thumb to twitch. The phone slid off the nightstand and hit the floor with a flat smack. The screen stayed lit. Images filled it. Thumbnails loading faster than I could process. Photos. Of me. Sleeping. Different angles. Different nights. Me curled on my side. Me flat on my stomach. Me staring blankly at the ceiling in the dark. Every picture taken from inside my bedroom. Some from right next to the bed, close enough that I could see the pores on my own skin. My throat worked uselessly. A dry click. She followed my gaze to the phone and tilted her head back toward me, proud, like a kid showing off a drawing. "You forget so much," she murmured. "But I keep." Her hand came down on my chest. It didn't feel like skin. It felt like pressure, like someone had set a heavy book on my lungs. My vision pulsed at the edges. The room flickered. For a split second, I wasn't in my bedroom. I was in a narrow, windowless hallway lit by a buzzing fluorescent strip. The walls were tiled in off-white squares, stained with something brown and smeared. The air was wet and hot, thick enough to chew. I heard water sloshing. Slow, deliberate. At the end of the hallway was a door. It was covered in scratches, deep ones, layered over each other so densely the wood looked furred. The handle rattled from the other side. A frantic, desperate shaking. I knew, without understanding how, that Erin was behind that door. I felt her hands hitting it. I felt the sting in her palms, the rawness where her nails should have been. Her breath came in broken, animal sobs that scraped the inside of my skull. Then the door stopped shaking. Silence swallowed the hallway. A shadow leaked out from under the gap at the bottom, not cast by anything. It moved with intention, spreading across the tiles like spilled ink. It crept toward me, and with every inch it covered, my chest tightened. Back in my bedroom, her fingers pressed harder. My ribs creaked. "You watched," she said softly. "You always watch." The images on my phone changed. Videos now. Grainy footage of that hallway. The angle was fixed high in the corner, like a security camera. The door at the end bulged inward once, twice. Then it split down the middle with a soundless tear. Something unfolded out of the room. It wasn't shaped like a person. It was too long. Its limbs dragged behind it like loose cables. The head hung at an angle that made my eyes ache to follow. It moved with a wet, folding motion, joints bending in extra places as it flowed into the hallway. It paused, turned its face toward the camera, toward me. Even through the static, I recognized the red hair plastered to its skull, the smile carved impossibly wide, the teeth stacked and glinting. My stomach lurched. Bile burned the back of my throat. I tried to turn my head away from the screen, from her face hovering above mine. But her hand held me in place with effortless weight. "She is open," the thing wearing Erin whispered. "She is empty. You made the space." The hallway on the phone filled with movement. The shadow from under the door rose up and wrapped around the creature's legs, climbing its body like smoke in reverse. Where it touched, the image distorted, pixels stretching and snapping. The creature convulsed, spine arching until it formed a broken bridge. The sound came back all at once. A scream ripped out of my phone speakers. Not Erin's. Mine. I heard my own voice echoing down that impossible hallway, raw and shredded. The creature's mouth opened in response, and the scream poured into it like it was being swallowed. The sound cut off abruptly. In my bedroom, I couldn't breathe. My lungs refused to expand. Panic detonated behind my eyes in white bursts. I thrashed inside my own skin, trapped and useless. Her face lowered until her forehead touched mine. Her skin was cold enough to sting. "You are a door," she said, "and I am walking." The pressure on my chest spiked. Something pushed from the inside. I felt it distinctly. An intrusion moving under my sternum, sliding between my organs with intimate precision. It wasn't pain. It was worse. It was awareness. Every inch it traveled lit up in my mind. A foreign presence mapping me from the inside out. My vision fractured into overlapping scenes. I saw Jessie kneeling on her bedroom floor. Hands clasped so tight her knuckles were bone white. Her lips moved in frantic, silent repetition. The walls around her rippled like fabric in a breeze that didn't exist. Behind her, the bathtub sludge churned. A hand broke the surface, then another. Pale fingers gripping the porcelain edge. I saw Erin strapped to a hospital bed, eyes rolled back so only the whites showed. Her chest rose and fell in shallow mechanical jerks. The heart monitor beside her spat out a steady, indifferent rhythm. At the foot of the bed stood a figure with its back to me, tall and thin and humming softly. The tune scratched at something familiar in my brain. I saw myself lying in my own bed, mouth open in a silent scream, while a shadow peeled out of my ribcage like a second spine being extracted. The thing inside me laughed. The sound vibrated through my bones. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was intimate, threaded through my nerves like a private joke. Her body above me began to blur at the edges. Not fading, smearing, like wet paint dragged across glass. The features of Erin's face stretched and rearranged, settling into something older, emptier. The red hair darkened, sinking into a depthless black that seemed to drink the light around it. The smile stayed. It always stayed. My phone screen went black. The room snapped back into brutal clarity. The weight on my chest lifted all at once, and air slammed into my lungs in a ragged, tearing gasp. I rolled onto my side and vomited onto the floor, my body convulsing with the violence of it. When I looked up, she was gone. The corner of the room was just a corner again, flat, harmless. My phone chimed softly. One new email. Hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I opened the message. There was no text, just a single attachment. A video file with a timestamp from a few seconds ago. I hit play. camera angle was from the ceiling, looking down at my bed. I watched myself curl on my side, choking and retching. I watched the mattress dip beside me as an invisible weight settled there. The sheets wrinkled around a shape I couldn't see directly, only infer from the way the fabric caved. A handprint appeared on my bare back, not pressed from the outside, pressed from within, bulging outward under my skin. 5 distinct impressions, stretching my flesh as something inside me pushed hard enough to leave a mark. In the video, my body jerked. My head snapped back, mouth opening in a scream I couldn't hear. The handprint slid slowly across my back, traveling toward my spine. And then it sank. My skin smoothed. The mattress rose as the invisible weight lifted. The video ended with me collapsing face first into the sheet, motionless except for the shallow flutter of my breath. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. My reflection stared back, pale, eyes rimmed in red, lips trembling around words I couldn't form. From somewhere deep in my chest, beneath the frantic hammering of my heart, I felt it. A small, patient movement, like fingers tapping from the other side of a locked door. The tapping didn't stop. It settled into a rhythm that followed me everywhere. A soft internal metronome clicking from somewhere behind my sternum. I tried to convince myself it was my heartbeat echoing weirdly in my ears, or muscle spasms from stress, or any other excuse that didn't involve acknowledging the obvious truth sitting in my gut like a stone. Something was inside me. I didn't go to work. I called in sick with a voice that didn't sound like mine, and turned off my ringer. But the silence didn't help. The apartment felt occupied in a way that had nothing to do with visible shapes. Every object looked staged. My coffee mug on the counter, my jacket slung over the chair. It all had this artificial stillness, like props on a set waiting for the actor to realize he was already in the scene. The tapping sped up when I thought about the Ouija board. A quick, eager flutter. I doubled over against the kitchen sink, fingers digging into the porcelain. The sensation wasn't pain. It was anticipation, and it wasn't mine. It was the feeling of someone leaning forward in their seat, watching a door they knew was about to open. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Every instinct screamed at me to let it die, to throw the phone into the sink and smash it with a plate, but my hand moved anyway. The call connected with a dry click. For a second, there was nothing. Just a low hiss, like air leaking from a tire. Then Jessie inhaled sharply on the other end. Not a greeting. A gasp. Like she'd been holding her breath for hours, and finally broke. "You need to listen," she said. Her voice was shredded raw, scraped thin. I could hear traffic behind her, engines roaring past in uneven bursts. "You can't talk. Just listen." My mouth opened automatically. No sound came out. I went back, she continued. After you left, I thought I overreacted. I told myself it was a prank, or we freaked each other out. I picked the board up off the floor. The tapping in my chest turned frantic. I tried to close it, she whispered. I said goodbye. I did everything you're supposed to do. And it laughed. The hiss on the line thickened. Under it, I heard something else. A wet, rhythmic noise. Breathing that didn't match Jessie's cadence. It said I did it wrong, she said. It said there are rules for doors. And I didn't follow them. A horn blared close to her phone. She swore under her breath, and the sound of footsteps echoed, sharp and hurried. I've been driving all night, she said. I can't go home. Every time I stop, it's there, in the rearview mirror, sitting in the back seat. My vision tunneled. I pictured her car interior with brutal clarity, the dim dashboard glow, the empty road stretching ahead, and that thing folded into the space behind her, knees pressed to its chest, smile splitting its face as it watched her eyes flick up to the mirror again and again. You need to get rid of it, Jessie said. There's a site. I found it on the deep web. I didn't know where else to look. The words dropped heavy and cold. I went through forums. She rushed on. People talking about the board, about attachments. There's a marketplace. They sell services, rituals, extractions. I messaged someone. They answered. My stomach twisted. The tapping inside me synced with her words, each syllable punctuated by a tiny internal knock. They want to talk to you, she said. They said it's anchored to you, that I'm just collateral. The hiss on the line surged. For a moment, Jessie's voice blurred under it, and I heard a whisper layered beneath her speech. Familiar, close to my ear. You are a door. I staggered back from the sink. The room lurched sideways. Text me the link, I forced out. My voice sounded distant, like it had traveled a long way to reach my own ears. I already did, she said. Check your messages and... She cut off with a strangled sound. Jessie? I said. Silence slammed down. The call ended. My phone chimed immediately. A single text from her number. A string of characters that looked like static given form. A jagged URL ending in .onion. My hands moved on autopilot. Laptop open. Browser launched. The familiar ritual of accessing the network felt obscene in its normalcy. Each click was a step deeper into something I couldn't name. The site loaded in pieces. Black background. White text. No images. Just a list of services arranged in a sterile column. The language was clinical, stripped of drama. Removals, transfers, bindings. Each item had a price next to it in cryptocurrency and a short description written in the same detached tone you'd expect from a tech support page. My eyes snagged on one entry. Extraction. Host-level entity. High risk. The description was a single sentence. We will enter. One of you will leave. A chat window blinked open at the bottom of the screen without me touching anything. You are late, it typed. The cursor pulsed patiently. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The tapping in my chest slowed, listening. Who are you? I wrote. A pause, then, a technician. The words sat there, absurd and terrifying. Another message appeared before I could respond. The thing inside you is old. It does not like to wait. Neither do I. A new line of text scrolled up. Location. I hesitated. Every warning I'd ever internalized about strangers on the internet screamed in protest. But beneath that was the memory of the handprint pushing out from under my skin. The hallway, the door. I typed my address. The reply came instantly. Prepare the space. Remove reflective surfaces. Sit in the center of the room. Do not stand until I tell you. The chat window vanished. A cold certainty settled over me. I moved through the apartment in a daze, turning mirrors to face the wall, draping towels over the TV screen, covering anything that could throw my image back at me. Each action felt ceremonial, like I was setting a stage for something that had already decided how the scene would end. I cleared the living room and sat on the floor. The tapping inside me resumed, louder now. Not a flutter, a pounding. It radiated outward, vibrating my ribs. My vision shimmered at the edges. The air tasted metallic. A knock sounded at the door. 3 sharp raps. I didn't remember telling the technician how to get into the building. I didn't remember hearing footsteps in the hall. But the knock was real, echoing through the apartment with a finality that stole my breath. I stayed seated. The knock came again. Louder, my chest tightened. The thing inside me shifted, pressing against my insides with sudden force. I gagged, a sour taste flooding my mouth. The pressure moved upward, crawling toward my throat. The door handle turned. I hadn't unlocked it. I was sure of that. But the latch clicked, and the door swung inward on silent hinges. The man who stepped inside was unremarkable in a way that felt deliberate. Average height, average build. His face was a blur of forgettable features that refused to stick in my mind. He carried a small black case in one hand and closed the door behind him with the other. His eyes found me immediately. "You did well," he said. His voice was calm, almost bored. Most hosts run. He crossed the room and set the case down a few feet from me. The tapping in my chest went berserk. My muscles locked. The pressure surged upward, and something hard slammed against the back of my teeth from the inside. The technician watched my face with clinical interest. "It's testing the exit," he said. "Don't open your mouth." I clamped my jaw shut. A muffled impact thudded behind my lips. Pain flared as my teeth bit into my tongue. Warm blood filled my mouth, copper and thick. The technician knelt and opened the case. Inside were tools that didn't look like tools. thin rods etched with symbols that hurt to focus on. Small glass vials filled with liquids that shifted color when I tried to pin them down. He selected a rod and held it between his fingers like a pen. "This will be unpleasant," he said. He drove the rod into the floor between my legs. The impact rang through the room with a sound like struck glass. The air convulsed. My ears popped violently, and a pressure wave rippled outward from the point of contact. The thing inside me recoiled. I felt it scramble, its movements frantic and slippery. My body arched off the floor without my permission. A scream tore out of me despite my clenched jaw, ripping free as a strangled howl. The technician moved with swift precision, pressing his palm flat against my chest. The world inverted. For a heartbeat, I was looking down at myself from the ceiling. My body writhed on the floor. Eyes rolled back, veins standing out like cords in my neck. The technician's hand glowed faintly where it touched my skin, light seeping through his fingers. Something pushed out of my chest. Not a handprint this time. A shape, a bulge that swelled grotesquely, stretching my skin until it went translucent. I saw movement beneath it, limbs folding and unfolding, a face pressing outward from the inside. The smile was visible even through the distortion. The technician's expression didn't change. He reached into the bulge. His hand sank through my skin like it was water. I felt everything. The invasion. The cold shock of his fingers closing around something that was not meant to be touched. The thing inside me thrashed, and my vision filled with white noise. The room erupted with sound. Voices layered over each other in a deafening chorus. Jessie crying my name. Erin screaming. My own voice repeating a phrase I couldn't understand. The technician grunted softly and pulled. A wet, tearing sensation ripped through my torso. Agony detonated in my nerves, pure and electric. I watched, detached and horrified, as his arm emerged from my chest, dragging a massive shadow that writhed and screamed without sound. It had a face. My face. Stretched and warped into that impossible grin. It locked eyes with me as it came free, and a spike of recognition stabbed through my skull. I knew it. Not as a stranger, as something intimate. A reflection peeled loose and given hunger. The technician forced it into one of the glass vials. The shadow compressed impossibly, folding in on itself until it fit. He stoppered the vial with a practiced twist. The screaming cut off. My body hit the floor. Pain receded in a nauseating rush, leaving a hollow ache in its wake. I sucked in air that tasted clean for the first time in days. The tapping was gone. The silence inside me was vast and terrifying. The technician stood, examining the vial. The shadow churned within it, my distorted face pressing against the glass. "It will hold," he said, "for a time." He looked down at me, and for the first time, something like emotion flickered across his forgettable features. "Do not open any doors," he said quietly. "Not for anyone you do not recognize. It will look for a way back." He closed the case, the vial nestled securely inside. As he turned to leave, The lights in the apartment flickered. The covered surfaces trembled. From somewhere deep in the building, a familiar whisper curled through the air. "You are still open." The technician paused at the door. His shoulders tensed. "That," he said without looking back, "is not possible." The whisper came again, louder. "You are still open." The towels slid off the reflective surfaces all at once. The TV screen gleamed black and perfect. In it, I saw my reflection lying broken on the floor. And behind it, standing in every dark surface at once, was the smiling girl with red hair. The technician's case rattled violently. Inside, the vial began to crack. The sound the vial made when it cracked wasn't sharp. It was soft, intimate, like a fingernail splitting. The technician froze with his hand still on the doorknob. The air in the apartment thickened again, but this time it carried a pressure that felt directional, like gravity had chosen a new center, and everything was leaning toward it. The black case in his grip trembled harder. A thin fracture spidered across its surface from the inside, glowing faintly like a hairline of lightning trapped under plastic. I tried to push myself upright. My limbs answered sluggishly, as if they were remembering how to belong to me. Every muscle trembled with leftover shock. The silence inside my chest wasn't empty anymore. It was expectant. The technician turned slowly. His forgettable face had changed. Not physically. If you'd photographed him and compared the images side by side, they'd match. But the expression had been scraped away. What replaced it was naked calculation, the kind you see in someone deciding which wire to cut on a bomb they built themselves. It followed the extraction. He said quietly. Not to me. To the room. To the thing that was watching from every reflective surface. The case split open with a wet pop. The vial inside ruptured. Glass fragments hung suspended in the air for a heartbeat, glittering like a frozen constellation. The shadow that had been compressed inside exploded outward in a silent bloom. It didn't fall. It spread. It poured across the floor in a tide that moved against the grain of reality, flowing uphill, coating the walls, staining the ceiling. Wherever it touched, the apartment lost depth. Corners flattened. Surfaces became slick and two-dimensional, like a photograph being overlaid on top of the world. The smiling girl stepped out of the TV screen, not climbed, not crawled. She simply occupied the space in front of it, as if she'd always been standing there, and my eyes were only just catching up. Her feet didn't touch the floor. They hovered a fraction of an inch above it, toes pointed downward like a puppet held by invisible strings. The technician moved fast. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin strip of metal that writhed in his fingers like a living thing. He snapped it in half, and the sound it made was wrong. It was too large for the object, a concussive boom that punched the air out of my lungs. The shadow recoiled from him, peeling back in ripples. For the first time, the girl's smile faltered. Her head turned toward the technician with a slow, curious tilt. Her eyes slid over him without recognition, like he was a shape she hadn't decided how to categorize yet. "You are not authorized," he said, his voice cutting cleanly through the pressure in the room. "This host is under contract." The girl blinked. The shadow surged. It hit him like a wave. His body jerked as it wrapped around his legs, climbing with insect speed. He slammed the metal strip into the floor again, and another shockwave tore through the apartment. The windows bowed outward, glass screaming in their frames. The shadow thinned where the wave passed, but it didn't retreat this time. It thickened, absorbing the force, learning it. The girl took a step closer to me. Every movement she made rewrote the space she crossed. The floor stretched and compressed under her, distance folding like paper. She was at the other end of the room, and then she was inches away, her face filling my vision. Up close, I could see the texture of her skin. It wasn't skin. It was a mosaic of expressions layered on top of each other. Faces pressed just beneath the surface, their features sliding and rearranging in a slow, nauseating churn. I saw Erin's terror flash across her cheek. Jessie's mouth opened in a silent scream along her jawline. My own eyes stared back at me from her forehead, wide and pleading. "You promised," she whispered. The words weren't accusation. They were simple statement. Memory slammed into me with brutal clarity. Valentine's night. The candles. The board. But there was a piece I hadn't remembered until now. A moment after Jessie knocked the board away, when the planchette skittered across the floor and came to rest against my bare foot, I'd picked it up. Just for a second. Just to set it back on the board. To pretend we could finish what we started and make the weirdness go away. My fingers had closed around it, and in that instant, a thought that wasn't mine had slid into my head. Say it. And I had. "I'll help," I'd whispered. A stupid joke to ease the tension. A line thrown into the dark. The girl's smile widened as recognition dawned in my eyes. "You said yes," she breathed. Behind her, the technician screamed. The sound ripped my attention sideways. The shadow had engulfed him up to his chest. It crawled into his mouth as he fought, forcing his jaw open with obscene gentleness. His eyes bulged, veins standing out in his temples as the darkness poured down his throat. He looked at me over the girl's shoulder. There was no fear in his gaze, only urgency. "Close it," he choked. The words were wet, dragged through the shadow filling his lungs. "The door. You have to..." The girl's arm snapped backward without her looking. Her hand punched through his chest. There was no spray of blood, no dramatic rupture. Her arm passed through him like he was made of smoke, and when she pulled it back, she was holding something that writhed and fluttered in her grip. His shadow. It thrashed like a living animal, clawing at her fingers. His body sagged instantly, collapsing in on itself. He hit the floor with a dull thud, eyes still open but emptied of anything that made them human. The girl squeezed. The shadow in her hand compressed into a tight knot and vanished. The apartment lurched. The walls flexed inward, the space shrinking, as if the building itself was taking a breath. She turned back to me. The technician's case lay split open beside his body. Inside, the tools rattled softly, vibrating in sympathetic resonance with the thing standing over me. My gaze snagged on one of the glass vials that hadn't shattered. It pulsed with a faint inner light, like a trapped heartbeat. The girl followed my eyes. Her smile sharpened. "You want to keep something," she said. "A piece. A promise." She knelt in front of me. The floor didn't creak under her weight. It didn't acknowledge her at all. Her hand rose and hovered over my chest. I felt the echo of that earlier intrusion, the memory of something being pulled from me. "You are a door," she repeated softly, "but doors can choose." The tapping returned, not frantic, not eager, slow and deliberate. A knock from the inside, asking permission. I understood then with a clarity that cut through the terror. The thing she'd pulled out of me before hadn't been the only occupant. It had been a fragment, a seed. The rest of her had been waiting in the spaces I refused to look at, feeding on every lie, every hidden shame, every moment I'd carved off and buried. She wasn't invading. She was completing a circuit I'd started. My hand moved toward the open case. She didn't stop me. Her eyes tracked the motion with mild curiosity, like she was watching a child reach for a toy. My fingers closed around the intact vial. It was warm. The light inside it flared at my touch. A frantic pulse that synced with my heartbeat. The girl leaned closer. "If you close," she whispered, "you close yourself." The vial trembled in my grip. Inside, the light twisted into a shape that looked painfully familiar. My own face stared back at me, not distorted this time, just tired, frightened, human. Behind it, shadows pressed against the glass, eager and hungry. The apartment was collapsing inward. The walls bowed like soft clay. The ceiling sagged. The technician's body was already flattening, losing dimension as the shadow consumed the space around him. The girl's hand settled over my heart. "Say yes," she murmured. The tapping rose to a crescendo. I thought of Jessie's voice on the phone, shredded with fear. Erin strapped to that hospital bed, her chest rising in shallow jerks. The hallway, the door, the promise I'd made without understanding its weight. My thumb slid over the vial's stopper. The girl's smile was infinite. I pulled. The stopper came free with a soft, obscene pop. The light inside the vial screamed. Not a sound my ears heard. A sound my bones felt. It tore through me. A vertical rip that split my awareness down the middle. The shadow in the apartment convulsed. The girl's expression flickered. For the first time, uncertainty cracked her composure. The faces beneath her skin writhed faster, expressions blurring into a frantic collage. The light from the vial poured into my chest. It burned. Not like fire, like recognition. Every buried memory ignited at once. every lie I'd told Jessie, every selfish impulse, every moment I'd opened myself to something dark and called it harmless. They surged through me in a blinding flood, and with them came the shadow, rushing to fill the space the light carved out. The girl screamed. The sound shattered what was left of the apartment. The walls imploded, folding into themselves. The floor dropped away. We hung suspended in a void that pulsed with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Her hand dug into my chest. Mine closed around her wrist. Our gazes locked, inches apart. Her smile was gone, peeled away to reveal something raw and furious beneath it. "You cannot close what you are," she hissed. The light inside me flared. The tapping stopped. In the absolute silence that followed, I pushed. Not with my hands, with the part of me that had said yes. I forced it shut. Every open corner, every hidden door. I slammed them closed with a violence that echoed through the void. The girl's body fractured. Cracks raced across her surface, light spilling through them in blinding streams. The faces beneath her skin screamed in unison. She clawed at me, her fingers tearing at my shoulders, but her grip was losing substance. She was coming apart in my hands. "This is not ending," she snarled. Her voice splintered, layered with 1,000 others. "This is folding." Her form collapsed inward, imploding into a single point of screaming light. Then it was gone. I hit the floor of my apartment. The walls were whole, the ceiling intact. The technician's body was gone. The case had vanished. The air was still and heavy with the smell of dust and something faintly metallic. My chest ached with a deep, bruised throb. Inside, there was no tapping, no movement, just a sealed quiet that felt fragile, like glass stretched thin. My phone lay on the floor beside me. The screen was lit with a single notification, a message from an unknown sender. I opened it with trembling fingers. There was no text, just a photo. It showed me lying on my living room floor, eyes closed, chest rising and falling. The angle was high, looking down from the ceiling. Standing over my body was a faint outline, a distortion in the air, shaped like a girl with red hair, her mouth stretched into that impossible smile. Beneath the image, one word was typed in small, neat letters. Waiting. You have the range, bro. I was just trying to chill and eat my little microwave burrito. And now I'm staring at my hallway like it's breathing. You're evil for posting this at night. I'm not even joking. I closed my damn bathroom mirror. Nah. I'm out. I've read a lot of No Sleep, but this got under my fucking skin. The "you are a door" line genuinely made my stomach drop. That's some next level cosmic horror shit, and the fact it tied back to the Ouija just makes it feel too plausible. I need a priest, or bleach. It's 2:34 a.m. and I'm sitting in my car outside my own house, because I read this on the drive home. and now I'm too scared to go inside. My kitchen has one of those big reflective microwave doors. I'm gonna cover that thing with a towel. Immediately. Why does this feel like it's written by someone who's actually experienced something they'll never recover from? The pacing, the little details like the tapping and the teeth. This isn't creepy story scary. It's, I will be thinking about this in the shower for the next 5 years. Scary. U/deleted. Comment deleted by user. Edit. Sorry, had to delete that. I started getting really bad sleep paralysis again after reading this, and I'm not trying to give this thing attention. Not even being funny. Stay safe, y'all. U/shifty. Neighbor 23. Nah, what got me was the reflection stuff. Like, I was okay with the possession angle, but when she was standing in every mirror at once, I had to stand up and walk around the room. That hit different. That hit wrong. Genuinely incredible writing, but I also hate you now. I'm not trying to be that guy, but if this isn't a movie within 3 years, I will riot. This makes Hereditary look like Goosebumps. You have a gift for realistic horror, bro. I kept checking over my shoulder. Still am. You just permanently altered the way I look at shadows in my house. Like this story doesn't end when you finish reading it. It clings to you. No jump scares, no stupid boo, just pure dread. Genuinely, masterpiece.
And that's it for tonight's episode. Crazy stories in my opinion. Hope you have enjoyed this video and see you in the next one.